Dr. Robert Jeffress, who is also a pastor in Texas, does not think the cops are respected enough. And on Fox and Friends, he called on churches to, quote, instill in their members a respect for the police. I've got that segment. Let's take a look.
Well, I think there are two things that churches can do and should be doing right now. One is to engage in public displays of support for the police. 2 months ago, our church had a Back the Blue Sunday in which we honored the Dallas Department. We had hundreds of police officers present. Chief Brown was there. We recognized him, and he was so appreciative of the effort because he said, frankly, they don't get a lot of thanks for what they do. But I think equally important is for ministers and churches to instill in their members a respect for the police. You know, the New Testament says in Romans 13:4 that law enforcement officers are ministers of God, sent by God to punish evildoers. When you think about it, police officers are just as called by God to do what they do as pastors and priests are called by God. And I think we need to remind our members of that. And frankly, I'm getting very sick and tired of so-called ministers who do nothing but sow seeds of distrust and disrespect for the police. Those kind of bogus ministers need to be exposed and need to be called out for what they're doing. We ought to be supporting police, not creating distrust for
Seems
police.
Like okay, so, those kind of bogus ministers need to be exposed and called out for what they're doing. Well, as opposed to calling out the officers who are actually causing that distrust by targeting minority populations. Now, I'm not saying that all police. No, when it comes to Dallas police, they actually had a really, really good policing program, right? And it was incredibly tragic what happened to those 5 Dallas police officers that were killed by this, terrorist is what I'm going to call him, because that's exactly what he is. He's a fucking terrorist in my eyes. But, Dallas had a great police force. They had great community policing, and I hope that this doesn't set them back. That said, there are those who do target minority populations. In fact, Michael A. Wood Jr., who was a former Baltimore police officer, told Cenk Uygur in an interview that his department, these officers, would target those communities because, look, they didn't want to risk arresting the son or daughter of someone who was powerful, like maybe a judge's son or a judge's daughter, right? Well, you don't want to cross the powerful people. Well, they can make my life and career pretty bad. That's where that distrust comes from. Minority communities are over-policed. And of course, that leads to statistics, more arrests, more stops, whatever, that back up the need to over-police them. Well, we have so many crimes in this area. Well, you've policed it way more than you did the white areas, made more arrests, so now you're saying that, and you're going to use that as a reason to say that, look, this area needs more policing because obviously black people do more crime. Well, that's not true. That's not true at all. It's actually been shown that black people and white people perform crimes at similar rates. It just happens that black people get busted more often for it, and when they're busted, they often go to jail more often. Now, I want to show you more of this conversation. Let's take a listen to this.
Look, it's no secret that I'm a strong supporter of Donald Trump. I serve on his Faith Advisory Council. I believe he has the leadership to stop the downward spiral of this nation. But having said that, I think it's time today and over the next few days for us to lay partisan politics aside, and whether we're Republicans, Democrats, or independents, I believe we need to come together and pray for our leaders as well as pray for God's healing for our nation. My own opinion is that President Obama has exacerbated the racial divide instead of healing it, and you saw that in Warsaw before the Dallas tragedy when he only gave one side of this whole issue of police injustice. And I think if the fact is 99% of police officers are good, hard-working, decent people, they ought to receive the bulk of the president's praise. And I'm afraid the president, just like he did with conservative Christians after the beheading by ISIS of Christians, it seemed like he wanted to blame conservative Christians in the past for atrocities instead of putting the blame where it belongs. And you know, I have to say this, if we would teach our children to respect law enforcement officers, they wouldn't have anything to worry about.
Yeah.
You know, the Bible says law enforcement officers nothing to be feared if you do what is right.
We'll have to.
Okay, so there's a couple of things that I love about that. First is, hey, let's put partisan politics aside and let's come together. Oh, by the way, it's Obama's fault. He's dividing the country. But wait, you just said let's put it away, and then not more than 30 seconds later, it's Obama's fault. Goddamn Obama dividing the country. It's his fault. That's amazing to me. Now, when it comes to police, right? The Bible says law enforcement officers are nothing to be feared if you do what's right. Well, see, that's what's wrong with this argument, right? First of all, it's coming from the Bible. We shouldn't really be an expert on this. But the other thing is that you have to respect the officers always, because we said so. Especially meaning the Bible, right? Well, the Bible also tells you pay your taxes, don't shout your good deeds when you do them, don't worship money, and oh, by the way, don't eat shrimp. So I'm wondering, when's Pastor Jeffress going to do all those? You gonna start? You gonna stop eating shrimp? Yeah, I didn't think so. No, the big problem here is that Pastor Jeffress and Fox News, they're trying to give bad cops a pass, which actually does more to hurt good cops than anything. And they're using the worst justification. Look, cops are human beings, right? They make mistakes and often are trained to react poorly to minorities and the mentally ill. How many stories have we done in that? They get angry, they have bad days, they become irrational, and look, some cops are even racist. But they're people, and they're people with a lot of power. And it's my opinion that we shouldn't blindly trust any institution that has the power of life and death. But that's exactly what these guys are advocating for. And it's odd coming from conservatives who are supposed to not trust those institutions, big institutions, with those types of powers. But look, they're not conservatives. These people are authoritarians with absolutely no plans to fix the problem. Because to them, nothing's broken. And you black people, you just need to give cops more respect. And that's it. This is just another example of these people sadly not living in the real world and certainly not offering real solutions.